Sometimes we get so caught up in our daily lives that we forget there's a bigger story going on, one that involves each of us in a very personal way. I want to take a moment to talk about something that touches all of us deeply, even if we don't always stop to think about it. The return of Jesus. Yes, it's a topic that can feel heavy, even overwhelming, but it's also full of hope, guidance, and the kind of peace that can change the way you live every single day. I remember speaking with a friend last year who told me something that really stuck. She said, "I know Jesus is coming, but sometimes it feels like I'm not ready, and I don't even know what being ready really means." And that honesty, wow, it was powerful. Because let's be honest, readiness isn't about perfection. It isn't about having life neatly packaged, without mistakes, or being flawless. It's about being aware, being present, and being intentional about where your heart is and what your choices reflect. Being ready starts with understanding who Jesus is. It's not just a figure from history or a name we say on Sundays. Jesus is love made tangible. He's mercy that meets us where we are, in our mess, in our struggles, in our doubts. And being ready means opening your heart to Him, trusting Him, and letting Him transform your life bit by bit. Think about it like this. If you were expecting a dear friend to arrive at your home, you'd clean up a little, make some space, and get ready to greet them warmly. Being ready for Jesus works in a similar way, but at a much deeper, spiritual level. It's about examining your heart, noticing the areas where pride, fear, or resentment might have settled in, and inviting Jesus to bring healing and light into those places. One thing that often surprises people is how personal this preparation can be. It's not about checking boxes or following rituals perfectly. It's about living in alignment with what you know Jesus taught. Love your neighbor, forgive, serve, be humble, and keep faith alive even when the world feels chaotic. When you do that, readiness isn't something you have to stress over. It becomes a natural outcome of your life flowing in harmony with God's purposes. And yes, the world around us can sometimes feel scary, even discouraging. News cycles bring stories of conflict, uncertainty, and change. And maybe you've had moments where you wonder, is it really soon? Am I missing something? Am I doing enough? Those feelings are normal. But here's the comforting truth. Readiness isn't measured by fear or anxiety. It's measured by trust, by living with faith in your heart, and by letting your actions reflect God's love even in the small moments. I like to think of this readiness like planting a garden. You don't just plant seeds and walk away. You water them, you care for the soil, you remove weeds, and over time, you see growth. Spiritually, it's the same. We cultivate love, kindness, prayer, and obedience. Little by little, our hearts align with God's will, and when Jesus comes, we're ready. Not because we are perfect, but because we have nurtured the soil of our hearts faithfully. And here's the most beautiful part. Being ready doesn't mean living in fear of judgment. It means living in expectation of joy, in anticipation of eternal life, and in the peace that comes from knowing that God's plan for you is perfect. It's a mindset shift that changes how you approach every day. Even mundane tasks, even challenges, take on new meaning when you live with the awareness that Jesus is near, watching, loving, and inviting you to follow Him closely. Sometimes, being ready might call you to make tough choices, letting go of habits, forgiving someone, seeking reconciliation, or committing more deeply to your faith. Other times, it's subtle, choosing patience, speaking truth, offering a smile or a kind word, or simply trusting God with the unknown. All of these small steps build a life that reflects readiness, not because of human effort alone, but because you are walking with God in humility and sincerity. Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that the day could be the day Jesus comes. How would that change your perspective, your priorities, your interactions? Suddenly, every moment becomes an opportunity to live intentionally, to love genuinely, and to walk faithfully. That's the power of knowing that He is coming soon. It's not just about a distant event. It's about transforming the here and now. So today, I want to encourage you. Take a moment to examine your heart. Ask yourself, am I living with love? Am I walking in faith? Am I ready to meet Jesus, not just someday, but every single day. Remember, readiness is a journey, not a single destination. And the beauty of it is, Jesus meets us wherever we are and gently guides us to grow, change, and embrace Him fully. If you take one thing from this today, let it be this. Being ready for Jesus isn't about being flawless. It's about being real, being willing, and being present. It's about opening your heart, loving others, forgiving, serving, and trusting that God's timing is perfect. And in that readiness, you'll find peace that transcends worry, hope that overcomes fear, and joy that no circumstance can steal. So let's choose today to live intentionally, to nurture our hearts, and to embrace the promise of His return. Let's be ready, not in fear, but in love, in faith, and in hope. Jesus is coming soon. Are you ready? Let's walk this journey together. It's a question that has stayed with me for years, and I've realized it's less about fear and more about reflection. It's easy to live day to day, wrapped in routines and responsibilities, and forget the bigger picture. But the truth is, His return is not just a story from the Bible. It's a promise, and it carries both hope and urgency. I remember a story a pastor once shared. He spoke about an elderly woman named Ruth. She had lived a long life, full of challenges, losses, and joys. Every Sunday, she would faithfully attend church, quietly pray, and extend kindness wherever she could. One evening, her granddaughter asked her, "Grandma, are you ready for Jesus?" Ruth paused, smiled, and said, "Honey, I may not have everything perfect, but I've tried to keep my heart open, and that's how I know I'm ready." Her words struck me deeply. Readiness isn't about perfection. It's about being intentional with your heart and your choices. It's about waking up each day and asking, am I living in a way that honors God? Am I reflecting His love? Being ready means embracing a personal relationship with Jesus. It's about more than attending church, saying prayers, or following traditions. It's about letting Him into the quiet corners of your life, the fears you hide, the regrets you carry, the desires you may be too afraid to admit. When Jesus enters those spaces, He brings healing, peace, and clarity. And that is the first step to being truly ready. I think about people I've known who lived their lives fully aware of His coming. One of them was a young man named David. He had made plenty of mistakes, some that left him feeling hopeless. Yet instead of giving up, he turned to God with an open heart. He began small, helping neighbors, forgiving those who hurt him, and spending time in prayer each morning. Over time, his life transformed, not because everything around him changed, but because he changed from the inside out. That's the kind of readiness that matters, the kind that touches hearts, changes lives, and brings hope even in difficult times. And here's the beautiful thing. Readiness is not about fear of missing out or panic over judgment. It's about love. It's about hope. It's about joy in knowing that no matter what happens, Jesus is with you, guiding you and inviting you to follow Him. When you live with that awareness, every action becomes meaningful. Every choice carries weight. And even the smallest act of kindness becomes a step toward readiness. I know life can feel messy. You might have regrets, unhealed wounds, or decisions that weigh heavily on your heart. But remember Ruth and David. Readiness is not about being flawless. It's about being honest, humble, and willing. It's about letting Jesus take your imperfect life and make it beautiful. Sometimes being ready might feel like a challenge. Maybe it's forgiving someone who hurt you deeply. Maybe it's letting go of bitterness, fear, or resentment. Maybe it's choosing faith when everything around you seems uncertain. But each of these steps, no matter how small, is an act of preparation. Each act is like polishing a mirror, making your heart reflect God's light more clearly. I also want to share something personal. A few years ago, I faced a time of uncertainty, financial struggles, family challenges, and moments where I questioned everything. I remember one night sitting alone, thinking, am I ready for Jesus if He came now? And I felt a quiet peace, almost like a whisper in my heart, reminding me that readiness is a journey, not a single moment. It's in the daily choices, the small acts of love, and the moments when we choose faith over fear. Being ready also means living intentionally in the present. Think about it. If Jesus could return tomorrow, would your life reflect the love, grace, and hope he teaches? It's not about being perfect, it's about being real. It's about being willing to walk humbly, love deeply, and trust fully. Let's take a moment to think about what that might look like. Perhaps it's helping someone in need, even if it's inconvenient. Maybe it's sharing your faith gently, without judgment, with someone who is struggling. Maybe it's spending a few minutes each day in prayer, asking God to guide your thoughts, words, and actions. Each of these steps is part of preparing your heart and mind. I also want to remind you that being ready doesn't mean isolating yourself from the world. On the contrary, readiness calls us to engage more deeply, with compassion, with patience, and with understanding. It's about seeing Jesus in the people around you, especially in those who are hurting or lost. When you reach out, forgive, and love, you're living a life of readiness. And yes, there will be moments of doubt. You might wonder, am I doing enough? What if I fail? These moments are natural. But remember, God's grace is greater than our doubts. Readiness is not about human perfection. It's about divine transformation. It's about letting God work in you, through you, and around you. So I encourage you today, take time to examine your heart. Ask yourself, am I living in a way that reflects Jesus' teachings? Am I loving others as he would? Am I forgiving, serving, and walking in faith? Don't wait for a dramatic moment to start. Start now, with small acts, with intentional choices, and with an open heart. Jesus is coming soon, not to frighten us, but to bring hope, renewal, and eternal joy. And when he comes, he wants to find our hearts ready, ready to receive his love, ready to reflect his light, and ready to embrace his promise. Remember Ruth, David, and even my own journey. Readiness is not perfection. It's a choice, a daily commitment, a life lived intentionally, in love and in faith. Each step you take matters, even the smallest ones. And every day you choose to live in alignment with God's teachings, you are preparing yourself to meet Jesus with joy, peace, and hope. So I ask you again, are you ready? Not just in your mind, but in your heart. Not just in words, but in action. Today is the perfect day to start living with readiness. Open your heart, trust him, love deeply, serve faithfully, forgive freely, and walk humbly, because Jesus is coming soon, and he wants to find you ready, alive in faith, and full of his light. Let this be more than a thought. Let it be a lifestyle, a daily practice, a journey that fills your life with purpose, peace, and hope. The time is now. The call is clear, and the promise is eternal.